Hello, here we are at Loudon Wood, although it's not much of a wood anymore, it's been cleared, but anyway, yeah, we're here. I'll just get the topology out the way, so let's walk into the middle, or near the middle of this circle, and we'll just have a quick circle round. So if we face across the recumbent south towards the sun, we're definitely on a rise here, although it was almost impossible to tell when this place was wooded. Come round towards the north, we're definitely on a bit of a rise, all the way round the north here, and come back, and there's a wee bit of a valley just down below us there. Yeah, but definitely on a nice open field of view all the way around type of thing. When I first come here in, I think 2022, this place was heavily wooded. In fact, it was atmospheric was definitely the word. Eerie was maybe even more better a word. It was really quite an interesting circle to be in, even during a bright sunny day. Here would be dense packed wood, and yeah, eerie I think is the word. Probably atmospheric, but definitely eerie. And it's a bit of a shame that it's not like that now. I mean, it's lovely and open, and you can see it from the main pathway off in the distance there, coming from the car park. But yeah, and it's nice and open, and it's definitely benefiting from being able to see the sun on a nice sunny day like this. But yeah, it's losing a little bit of its atmosphere from not being surrounded by trees anymore. So the general history, or the recorded kind of history behind these stones was, again, 1840, a couple of local ministers would have recorded all the local standing stones like Gavel and Achy Bray and such around about here, and they did make the comparison between this altar stone, they would have called it, we call it recumbent stone now, as being an unusual stone circle. So they had a differentiation even back then about what kind of stone circle it was. What they did record was there was 3 stones standing, so that's this flanker here. That would be stone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across there, 6, and number 7 and 4, and the number 3, the other flanker, all lying down. So back in 1901, when Cole was going around doing the rounds and recording these circles as well, he observed the same thing. What he did observe, though, was the plantations. I think, like most stone circles, they either in a field and getting subject to blasting and removal because they needed the ploughed ground, or they're in tree plantations and the trees are planted or grow so near to the stones that they essentially uproot them. And I suspect that's what's happened to a lot of stone circles and a lot of stones, especially these ones. There's no real reason a stone circle that's been around for 5,000-6,000 years, the stones would just fall because they're, just fall. There's a fairly good, reasonable chance that most of these fallen stones are because of trees that have grown adjacent to them, and the roots have gradually eroded their foundations and they have fallen over. Or probably more likely that, and especially like the evidence that I saw when I was here in 2022, was trees had fallen on top of them. When I was here, I've just been past the last storms, and it was almost impossible. Almost gave up getting to the stones because the trees, surrounding trees, had fallen in such a way that it was almost impossible to get through to see the stones. So I suspect that most of these stones are fallen because of a smack from a tree or such. But in any case, essentially what we can tell from the records is that this circle has remained pretty much as it is for the last 150 years. Maybe almost to 200 years at least, probably. So what have we got? We've got a classic number 1 stone flanker, recumbent stone, fallen flanker, and then a circle round. What has been also discovered is lots of curb stones. So lots of curb stones here, all the way around the circle. We'll do a little bit more walk around. And essentially beside this flanker here is a lot of curb stones. So curb stones being a fairly good indicator that we'd have a cairn right in the centre. And the curb stones would have been there to curb the cairn, so that the stones from the cairn would stay where they were, essentially. And of course there's always a lot of discussion round about, I wonder if the cairn was built first, then the circle round about it, or the circle then the cairn was used as a kind of a sacred place to store the bodies of the bones of the dead type of thing. But because these circles are so old, 5,000-6,000 years old, we'll just be able to speculate, I think. And the unfortunate thing is, as like most stone circles, especially recumbent stone circles in Aberdeenshire, the cairns have been used for, the cairn stones rather, have been used for other purposes. They're relatively small and handy and would have been used for dikes or building purposes roundabout. So yeah, so let's have a quick wander around. So stone 1. So I'll stand beside it. We're probably talking about at least 2 meters high. It's a block with either chosen because it's got fairly flat sides and fairly right angles, or been shaped that way. It's upright and it's a shapely block. It's square-ish, pointed. Quite a nice example of a flanker. Flanker being normally the tallest stones in a recumbent stone circle. What tends to happen, or what we're observed from what we've been left with, is the flanker stones are the tallest stones, and as you gradually go round the circle, especially to the back ones are usually the shorter circle stones. Not always, but it tends to be the kind of way. So that's, and convention, just out of sheer, just to be able to kind of number them in some kind of order. When we look at the kind of recumbent setting, so the recumbent stone in both flankers facing south, which this one is, we start with this stone here as being the kind of convention to call number 1. Number 1, recumbent stone's always number 2, number 3. We've got a 4th stone line down, 5th stone over here. Nothing. There's a little bit of a kind of pile here, but I think that's curb stones. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is number 6 and number 7. So we've got 7 stones in this circle. So we've had a look at this number 1, number 2, the recumbent. So we've got a kind of pointy end, which is a bit like Achy Brae, which is not too far away actually from here. It looks like it's been on a little bit of a plinth. That normally kind of suggests to me that it's been moved or adjusted or replaced slightly. Although you wouldn't think there would be much case to move it, but it might have been, again, kind of lopsided or on its side at one point because of tree movements or bashed by a tree. The front side is at an angle, which is a bit unusual. It kind of like supports the idea of it maybe being moved. You'd imagine this front edge to be absolutely square, or indeed that might have been the top. And what we're looking at is a side view here that's in the top. There's you just never know with circles that have maybe been adjusted and moved slightly. And that's one of the main reasons which any kind of alignment discussions kind of has to be taken with a fairly large pinch of salt, because of circles, stone circles have been adjusted and moved and put back into place, and some circles have been rebuilt 3 times. It's such a stricken. So that's the recumbent. Quite a nice large stone, a split right across here, which goes right round the stone, which would kind of indicate that it's been maybe moved or adjusted at some point or hit with a tree. Stone 3, the other flanker. So you can tell by this one, the sheer size of it, that it's fallen outside the circle. It's fallen kind of on its flat edge outside the circle. But we probably would guess maybe kind of 25 to 30% of the stone base would have been in its socket. And that's why it would look, the size that it does. If it was upright and in its socket, the chances are it would probably be round about the same kind of height as its number 1 stone. But yeah, quite a substantial flat-sided. Not know really what's on the other side, but suspect it's about the same. Right angles, either shaped or chosen to be like that. And then coming around the circle to stone 4 on the way, there's the curb stones for the centre cairn. And then we're on to stone 4, a bit of a brute of a stone. Again, you might have to be looking at this kindly, but it's maybe been bashed and hit with so many trees over the years that it's just not what the shape it used to be. But it is a bit of a boulder, and again, there's a good chance that maybe what we're looking at here is this could be the top or the bottom. Hard to kind of tell about which end was used as the socket side. Would you maybe kind of follow the curve of the circle around here? Hard to tell, but that's stone 4. It's sizable. I think if it was up on its end and socketed, it would probably maybe be about 160 centimetres, maybe 2 metres high. On to stone 5. So, got a nice stone. This is about, I'll stand next to it, it's about my height, so it's 160 centimetres. There's been a fair bit of bashing here. Something's come off this section, but it's flat faced. It looks like it's taken a bash at this point here. So what I'll do is I'll walk around the circle perimeter, and we'll probably guess that there's maybe been a few stones here. You can tell there's a bit of a kind of footpath. This is where the sort of central cairn would have been. We've got some helicopters going over by. There's a pile of stones here. Don't want to disturb the moss or anything. In fact, don't want to do anything like that, because that might damage the stones underneath. But this looks like a kind of pile of curb stones that's maybe been just put into a kind of pile here. Certainly this one is maybe Kirby. Come round to stone 6. And this is a monster of a stone. So this is, if I stand up beside it, it's going to be maybe kind of 170, 180 centimetres. Again, kind of flat sided but boulder looking about it. Flat outside surface. Certainly been bashed and hit a few times by, I would suspect, trees. Not so much right angle, but certainly an angle there. Flat sided, flat topped. Lots of nice quartz. These are all, I think they're all kind of grey granite. So that's number 6, and then come around to the last stone, number 7 on its side. Again, kind of hard to tell if that's the original circle designed to come round here to this one. If it is, it looks like this one's maybe just fallen in to the circle. But equally could have been moved around a little bit. Again, quite a long stone. Again, quarter to a third of it being the socket section. Hard to tell which one, but it is a monster. flat-sided, flat-topped, or flat-bottomed. I would, you know, if we were to kind of like guess, you'd maybe think this is a slightly more pointed end, this might be the socketed end, and that might be the top, but who's to know? Who's to know? But it is a block of a stone. So that's 7. So yeah, so this is a relatively tight circle, not a huge diameter, facing south, getting all the benefits from the sun. And I'm a very tactile person, and this is lovely and warm on a March day, so well worth a visit. It's a lovely circle, a bit scorched earth at the moment since they've just relatively recently had taken all the trees down, but they have replanted, so there's lots of nice trees kind of starting to grow up a little bit. So, but it's a really nice open space for, you know, like a nice summer day if you were to have come here for see the circle, maybe have a picnic or such. That'd be perfect. But yeah, thanks very much for joining me.